gates are open. The fairground is in full swing. This then is an introduction to the 1991 Enfield pageant of motoring, held on the Enfield playing fields. The pageant is organised by the Enfield and District Veteran Vehicle Trust, a charity formed to administer the founding of a motor museum in the Enfield area. The pageant is an annual event, now in its 14th year, attracting some 25,000 spectators, over 1,500 exhibitors and 52 different motoring clubs. The auto jumble area consists of just over 500 stalls selling all the items so necessary for the restoration and maintenance of vintage and classic vehicles. The show includes every aspect of the history of motoring. Motor cars from the turn of the century are represented, as are early motorcycles and lorries. Good examples of buses, coaches and firefighting vehicles always abound, as do military vehicles. A more rural flavour is offered by the stationary engines and tractors, and many visitors to the show are understandably interested in our steam display. The auto jumble is now surely one of the largest in the country, and many enthusiasts spend most of the weekend browsing through the stalls looking for spare parts. American cars are always well represented, and this year was no exception, with a fine display of both vintage and classic period cars. The recently formed motorcycle section also had a chance to show off their bikes. Everybody enjoys the grand parade.
George Baker, the pilot of our Belsize. Can you tell everybody briefly, George, about the old girl? Yeah, it was manufactured in 1912. It's a 14.7 litre petrol engine, so it does about 4 miles to the gallon. It was used by Southampton Fire Brigade until 1926. It was put in part exchange for a Dennis fire engine. It then went to a company of printers who used it as a works fire engine up until the time the club purchased it in 1960 or 61. It's done quite a few Brighton runs, a few miles recently. Had 3 new cylinder blocks made for it a few years ago. The Healy Shaw multi-state clutch, 4-speed gearbox, separate reverse lever. The club's had it since 1961. So, and it's been repainted this year and sign written. Looks very nice. And as I said before, it's completed the Brighton run this year without any problems whatsoever. Thank you. Good. Thanks, Joel. Yeah, go on, kick it, Chris. Show him how to kick it, mate. Go on, watch this. Stand back, everybody. Go on. Ah, not that time. You've got to get everything about right, and if you're lucky, the 14 litres. Yes! Lovely, second boot.
The society was formed in 1961 by a dedicated band of enthusiasts who, with great foresight, realised that old and rapidly disappearing forms of road transport needed desperately to be preserved, that they may be enjoyed in future years. In its first year of formation, the society purchased 2 vehicles. The first was the ex-Southampton Fire Brigade Belsize, and the other a 1926 overland truck. Both of these vehicles are still with the club, and they form the basis of the museum project. During the 1970s, a charitable trust was created to raise funds for a museum, and after several highly successful pageants of motoring, a pumping station at Whitewebbs Road was purchased. This building had been commissioned by the New River Company in 1898 and used only as a reserve pumping station. By the time the club moved in, Whitewebbs was a forlorn place indeed. By Victorian standards, it's a simple structure, but benefits from beautiful arched windows and ornate brickwork. In the few short years of its ownership, the trust has continually improved the site. A complete railway station canopy was removed from Enfield Chase Station and re-erected at the museum, and recently work started to improve the interior of the building. Probably the biggest job tackled so far was the addition of the intermediate floor in both the pump hall and the boiler house. This was a very expensive job carried out by contractors, and is yet another stage in the dream that we have of creating a museum in our old pumping station. Spring of 1991 has seen a great deal of activity at the museum. Not only are they in the process of extending the premises and improving them, but they have also had the restoration of the Belsize fire engine in order to prepare it for the annual commercial vehicle London to Brighton run. This has involved a number of members, both young and old. It was encouraging to see the long-standing members taking the job so seriously and producing such a wonderful piece of refurbishment. Having previously had a major engine rebuild, the old fire engine was pretty good mechanically, but did desperately need cleaning, repairing and repainting in order for it to make a good show. While the Belsize team cracked on with their work, the contractors realised all our dreams and completed the first floor, allowing the vehicles to return to their rightful home. It won't be too long now before the Belsize is ready for a test run. Although an enormous amount of work was carried out on the Belsize, the overland was not strong. Chassis and axles were freshly painted, a good coat of polish and a general tidy-up made the overland in its own way just as spectacular as the fire engine. Well, it started. The local press were invited. The 2 vehicles had be transported from the museum to Crystal Palace in readiness for the Brighton run. It's an early start on the Sunday, and so the vehicles are loaded and transported the previous day. Sunday morning, Crystal Palace, and a more miserable morning could not have dawned. Drizzling. It's cold. But the enthusiasm is still there, and the brass is still shining. The Belsize, seen here with its motley crew, almost ready for the off. The Brighton Road, just before Red Hill, and here comes the Belsize. Everybody looks happy. The overland still follows on. There she is. She's made it. Thumbs up all round. It's pleasing to report that the overland was equally trouble-free, but we're unable to show its reach in Brighton. We understand that the crew stopped for refreshments on the way.